Welcome to my business and cultural experience in Peru, 2016. After a long 10-hour travel day, I finally land in Lima, Peru with 4 of my fellow study abroad students. Soon after customs, we are greeted by our ISA director, Michelle, who leads us to our giant coach bus, in which we were not expecting in the slightest. One of the first things we encounter are the busy streets and heavy traffic of the morning rush to work. After settling in at our hotel, we set off on a walk through the Barranco district, which we see various signs of street art and the vibrant colors in which they use to represent their culture. Through the street art, I feel as though I could better understand the Peruvian culture and the way their emotions are portrayed through their color and technique. We also had our first experience with Peruvian cuisine in Barranco at Rustica, a buffet-styled restaurant. Peruvian cuisine consists of seafood, such as dishes like ceviche, as well as potatoes, many types of potatoes, and big corn, which they enjoy at almost every meal. After lunch, we made our way down to the beach and along the coastline, right before hopping into a cab to go and see the last remains of the Incan pyramids. During our tour of the pyramids, we learned how each brick was made out of adobe clay and what the purpose of the pyramids essentially played in the history of the Incans. After a long day of educational sightseeing, we wandered over to the cat park, which you can tell the locals take great care of and enjoy and appreciate that it is a tourist attraction. The morning of our second day, we met with Dr. Bakur and Michelle, our ISA director, to talk about what the trip and the whole study abroad program had to offer. After our orientation, we headed over to the Parque del Amor, which is dedicated to all lovers and provides the most stunning view of the coast of Lima. After we wandered around the Love Park, we headed off to our first company visit with Neo Consulting. Neo Consulting is a marketing agency in Peru, which strives to be innovative and have a hands-on, interconnected team. The setup of the office was very open and spacious. It gave everybody the opportunity to talk to anybody that they wanted at any time. Right off the bat, you can tell the employees are very interconnected, both socially and on the work that they are producing. At the end of our office tour, we were given the opportunity to meet the CEO, Daniel Falcon. Daniel was extremely open about his experience with the company and where he believed the company would be in a couple of years. I found it very interesting how open and honest Daniel was about the expenses of the company and when it was having its good times and its bad times. I really admired that as a CEO, he wanted to be the best he could be for his employees, not only just for the company.
Maybe I'm heading to die, but I'm still gonna try. I guess I'm going home.
Our third day in Peru was dedicated to touring downtown Lima and going to Chinatown for lunch. We made various stops along the way in downtown Lima, such as this one, the Church of Santo Domingo. We also learned about the sacred balconies that Lima protects. As you see in a couple of my photos, the balconies are intensely detailed and one of the most ideal things to see while in downtown Lima. I'm extremely inspired and drawn to the detailing of their architecture. That is something you don't often find in America due to how new it is. Each building had its own story and its own history, something incredible. It was incredible to learn that these buildings have withstood earthquakes and natural disasters and are still in their natural form. After our tour, we headed to Chinatown for a family-style lunch where we all got to split and share and try all the different dishes that Chinatown had to offer. Going to Chinatown is something I often do here in America, so it was great to see it in another country in a different context. On our fourth day, we went to a company visit that was very different from the rest. We went to Yobel, a supply chain management company, which we explored the warehouse and the factory. During our time in the factory, we got to see how cosmetics such as lipsticks and lotions were processed and made. It was amazing to get to go into their labs and see how the pigments and different colors are created from minerals and different substances. Not only did we get to see how the products were made, but we also got to go into the warehouse and see how the processing of shipments are done. After our company visit at Yobel, we then went to go tour Circus Gray, an advertising agency in Peru. Circus Gray happens to be one of the top 10 largest advertising agencies in the whole world. Our time at Gray, we learned the cost of producing an advertisement and all the work that goes into one.
I watch the stars from my windowsill. The whole world is moving, and I'm standing still. Woke up, wish that I was dead, with an aching in my head. I lay motionless in bed. The night is here, and the day is gone, and the world spins madly on.
On our fifth day, we made a visit to Wonderman Fantasia, another marketing firm here in Peru. Wonderman is best known for their handmade billboard for Cusqueña beer. Wonderman went out and hired the women of the Peruvian hills to weave a textile for their handmade billboard idea. Wonderman was the first marketing agency that we were at that I felt like they integrated the Peruvian culture. It was great to learn about and hear the story of how the billboard was made and how long it took and how many women it took to be involved to weave a textile billboard. Wonderman also had a campaign going that if you brought in bottle caps to a specific retailer with products that have the woven textile attached to them, that you would get them for a discounted price. I really appreciate the time that Wonderman takes to indulge in the Peruvian culture and tie it into their advertising. This is Cecilia. She was also one of our ISA directors who guided us through our tours. After Wonderman, we went to the Inca market for souvenirs for our families, then headed to La Lucha for a great Peruvian sandwich.
Make us some coffee. Say to the sun, is it enough to write a song and sing it to the birds? They'd hear just the tune, not understand my love for words, but you would hear me and know.
The sixth day marked the end of our company visits and our flight from Lima to Cusco. At the airport, we were picked up by Fernandito, who would be our tour guide for Machu Picchu. This is Pachacuti. Fernandito taught us about him on our drive from the airport. It is believed that Machu Picchu was built as an estate for Pachacuti. Because Lima is so urbanized, we had yet to see any rural Peru. These are some of the homes that we witnessed on our drive from the airport to the train station. It's crazy to think that they live so simply. After missing our first train and a crazy bus ride, we finally made it onto the train that would take us to Aguas Calientes. Aguas Calientes is a tiny town that we stayed in that is built into the mountains. This is where you stay before you take a bus ride up to Machu Picchu, a day of hiking. I was extremely intrigued at the amount of people who had stayed at that very tiny little hotel that we were staying in before us, thousands upon thousands. I noticed that during our time in Peru, we never had one bad experience with a local. They were always so kind and generous and willing to help. Day 7, the day we had all been waiting for. We finally get to go to Machu Picchu. After a short bus ride up, we had reached the top of the hill, where we could get out and roam as we pleased. Fernandito met us at the hotel before we had left so that he could guide us through Machu Picchu and teach us all that we could learn. Fernandito taught us about the quipu, which is an accounting system, or a collecting and keeping record system that the Incas used while they lived here in Machu Picchu. This is a series of strings that the knots indicate an amount or a type of product or good. The shacks with the straw roofs were used as refrigerators. They would store their grains and goods for the next days to come. Due to the cold at night and the adobe clay, the food and grain would stay cold and good. This sign-in sheet is to keep track of all the visitors that go along the ledge of Machu Picchu. I found it extremely exciting to look down the list at all the different countries that had come before me and after me. As I read through the list of countries that occupied Machu Picchu with me, I was amazed and touched. One of my very favorite moments of the whole trip was hiking up to the Sun Gate with JT, Lacey, and Mikey. The hike up there made me feel the worst I have ever felt in my life, but the view made me feel the best I have ever felt in my life. We took a train from Aguascalientes to Ollantaytambo to stay the night. In Ollantaytambo, they were celebrating some sort of festival. This became very apparent to us when this is what we woke up to at 6 a.m. The streets filled with the sound of drums, stomping, marching, and the vibrant colors of their traditional garb. During our day in Ollantaytambo, we couldn't help but notice all the vibrant colors of the festival wear. Around every corner and in every alley, we noticed a different outfit on little kids, on adults, on everybody. I have never felt so immersed and enriched by another culture in my whole entire life. It was great to see a whole community come together and celebrate. These are the original irrigation systems that the Incas used. The water is used to feed cattle and to water plants and for the sewage. As you can imagine, because it's streaming from the mountain, it's freezing cold. This is the most beautiful view of Ollantaytambo. Here we sat and learned about the clay shacks that were used as refrigerators, all the way up here. I couldn't imagine having to come up here every morning for food. Speaking of food, here are some of the guinea pigs that families raise that will be turned into traditional cuisine. After our tour around Ollantaytambo, we headed off to a brewery. At the entrance of the brewery was a game called Sabo, which means toad in Spanish. Once we were inside, we found a small, old woman making chicha, which is Spanish beer. She makes this beer in those giant barrels and lets it ferment. It's made of corn. The most fascinating thing about this beer is that it's not commercially sold. The locals can buy it from people who make it in their homes. The only way that they know if they have it is a red bag hanging outside their door. One of my most favorite moments was when we drove up to rural Peru and a little girl, Camila, ran up and grabbed Dr. Baker's hand and led her up the stairs to show us around, where they make textiles, anywhere from blankets to scarves, to tablecloths and table runners. This moment just shows how kind-hearted the Peruvian people are. Once we reached the top, we were then taught the process of cleaning the alpaca hair, then dyeing it, and then the process of weaving into a textile. It was incredible to see the work that goes into these beautiful pieces of art, all handmade by these incredible women. After learning about the textile making process, we went to lunch at Tanupa, which backed up on a piece of land in an incredible river. Here we feasted on amazing Peruvian food and hung out with some llamas. We then made it back to our hotel in Cusco, where we sat down, and it finally hit us how far away from home we were. Not in a bad way, in an incredible way. We were all so proud and excited that we were in Peru. Being that this was the end of our trip, we all hung on to every single detail that we possibly could.
Think I can fly. Think I can fly when I'm with you. My arms
On our 9th day, we had big plans. This was our final day, and so we wanted to take it all in. We first started on the Plaza de Armas, where we looked at the statue and then looked at the architecture of the main building. Both of these structures have so much history and so much strength behind them. After roaming the Plaza de Armas, we went to the statue of Christ, which is very popular here in Peru. We came upon a woman with a lamb. She was offering us to hold it in exchange for money. This is something that is very common. We once again ended up in the market. I was extremely overwhelmed by the immense amount of fruit and vegetables and produce, anywhere from flowers to ham. This was an incredible place that you do not find in the US, a marketplace and a business structure we just don't have. Within the market, there was a little section where everyone could gather and eat. All the locals seemed to enjoy each other's company, whether they knew each other or didn't know each other. In America, we would never go up and try and eat with a stranger and start a conversation. Here in Peru, it was very common. Our final adventure in this incredible journey was to zipline. This moment was intense. It was just a vast amount of beauty and a vast amount of landscape that we got to explore. It was a time.